It's the offensive line and the tight ends. And as I've been doing this week, I've been diving into some numbers. Ooh.
What are we starting with, tight ends?
Going to start with some tight ends. So here's the last decade of the top 2 leading tight end receivers by receptions in a season for Nebraska. Last year, Thomas Fidone had 25 catches for 260 yards. Nate Borkacher had 5 catches for 51. If you look back through history, there's only twice in the last decade where a tight end had 30 or more catches.
Wow.
Austin Allen had 38 for 602 yards, which is almost double the next highest total, by the way.
I realized he had that many yards that year.
And who could ever forget Tyler Hoppus?
I was going to,
2017.
I don't even remember this guy.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah. Yes, but it's not that memorable. But he had 34 catches for 377 yards. Those are the 2 top receiving seasons by a Nebraska tight end.
Wow.
In the last decade.
That's
Third
wild.
on the list would be Sethan Carter.
Oh, remember Sethan?
Sethan Carter and Sam Cotton were basically the same duo for 3 straight years, 2014, 2015, 2016. Look at that 2014 season. Sethan had 6 receptions to lead all tight ends, and Sam Cotton had 3. Nebraska did not throw to the tight ends in 2014.
The part that I don't understand about all of this is, like, we've moved into this era of football where the tight end is so valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And Carter, I don't want to relitigate it. He was good. He could have been good. Doesn't make any sense.
Could have been a contender.
Yeah.
So there's some numbers to look at. So when I looked at what I'd like to see from the tight ends this year, if I'm going to place a number on it,
okay,
I think Fidone needs to be in that 30 catch category. Get into the 30 catch category. And then it's
very good number.
If I take out some numerical benchmarks and just look at, Fidone should be a true red zone / third down weapon. And with the
guy you want to go to, yeah.
With the grouping of people he has around him and other folks you've got to accommodate, talking about the wide receivers, you would hope that would open up some opportunities for him to really be that guy. Yeah. So that's what I'm looking at for Fidone, a true red zone third down weapon, get north of 30 catches. And I'd like to see Nate Borkacher become kind of an X factor. You know, one of those way back in the day, you had some tight ends who all they did was catch touchdowns. Be kind of cool. I'm not saying Borkacher needs
like
to
Chris
go out
Carter,
and be, Chris Carter like, but it'd be nice if he kind of became an X factor and also in the running game as well, because all of this kind of ties together.
Dang it, we're like way too close on this. But the first one, I didn't write down numbers, but I said, can Fidone have a breakthrough year where he proves anyone wrong for saying he wouldn't be an all-conference player? And obviously I say that in jest, but I mean, seriously, like, can he become an all-conference player? All-conference would definitely be north of 30 receptions. I think if you can't have the raw, 50 to 60 catches that, a lot of the all-conference tight ends can have, how do you make up for that and become a third or second team all-conference tight end? By getting touchdowns. He had 4 last year. Little spoiler alert, I'm on the Hypecast this week for 24/7, and we were talking about Fidone a little bit, and BC brought up how so many times last year he was reaching down or reaching high to try to make a catch. If he has a quarterback that can throw him the ball well, which he's going to, that should result in more touchdowns first and foremost. I also mentioned Borkacher, and it's funny, I didn't realize you were going to do the top 2 tight ends for the last decade. But I mentioned him last year, 5 catches, 51 yards. Up that number. It'd be really nice to have 2 tight ends that, if you're talking about 40-ish, 45 combined catches, certainly north of 10 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I feel like that'd be a great, great season for the tight ends.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's doable. I think that Fidone can have a good year. I think he can have a good year.
If you look between the top 2 tight ends, the number 1 season in terms of combined touchdown passes is only 5. That was 2017 with Hoppus catching 3 and Jack Stoll catching 2.
Still don't remember this person at all.
So there's a look at tight ends. The next stat I have is regarding the offensive line, and what I'm looking at is the sack rate. So the sack rate, basically the percentage of plays that you're allowing a sack. So you take your pass attempts, you add the number of sacks that you have allowed, because that's the total plays, passing plays, and then it's a percentage. What's the percentage of plays that have resulted, passing plays that have resulted in a sack? And if you take a look here, especially at the last 5 seasons, that number has been north, basically almost 8% or greater. Last year, it was 7.7%. And keep in mind, that was only on 261 pass attempts or 283 passing plays when you add in the number of sacks. They gave up 22 sacks last year. 2 years ago, they gave up 33 sacks, 8.8% sack rate. And you're saying, well, how does that compare? Well, by comparison, I just looked at some of the better teams last year. Georgia last year, its sack rate, and they had well over 400 passing attempts, 2.76%.
Wow.
Michigan, the national champs, was at 5.2, and Washington was at barely over 2%. So that gives you an idea of kind of where some of the leading teams in the country have been. But the last 5 years, that sack rate has been essentially 7% or greater.
Wow.
Compare that to the 5 years prior. Look at those 3 seasons of Mike Riley.
Yeah, where they're always throwing the ball more. Their fewest passes, John, in any of those previous 5 seasons came in 2014, 359 passes. That was still more than in any of the other seasons, and yet their sack rate was better than every one of those other seasons.
2015, Nebraska's sack rate was less than 3%.
They were throwing the ball
14%.
more and getting sacked less.
They were 3.6% in 2016, the last bowl season. Even in the disastrous year of 2017, their sack rate was under 5%. So what does that mean for this year? I would like to see the sack rate at under 5%.
All right, well, along those lines, I decided not to be numerical, and I just went off vibes. Keep Dylan Raiola healthy. I wrote down 2 things, but that was the main thing. Obviously, right? It is the most important thing for this whole damn season is keeping him healthy. So I wrote that down. I'll give you something a little different, though, and this is going to be numerical. Last year, one of my favorite stats the entire season was that Nebraska was the number 1 rushing offense in the Big Ten all the way until the last week of the year, because then they finished number 2. And I thought that was such a great representation of the year, because I thought being number 1 was a bit of fool's gold, because so much of it was based off of the quarterback run game, and sometimes it was happening in situations where the pass broke down and Harburg or Chuba had to take off. Jeff Sims in the handful of games that he played too. Help Nebraska to a top 3rd rushing attack in the conference. 18 teams now, so I'm saying a top 6 rushing attack in the conference. And why are you saying, well, that goes from 2nd to 6th, Josh? Yeah, but the quarterback run game is going away. Can you get into that? I mean, certainly upper half, I think, would do wonders for the offense. But I think if they're able to be a top 3rd rushing team in the Big Ten, that would be a successful year, and the offensive line would have a big part in helping do that.
I'll throw out another thing. It'd be nice if you can stabilize left tackle, if Turner Corcoran can hold up. You can build a little depth behind it. And then, does Nebraska have an effective 4-minute offense? If you're going to win close games, you need a 4-minute offense. When you got the ball with the lead and you need to kill the clock, can you have a 4-minute offense, which usually means you're running the ball, you're protecting the quarterback, and getting some real high percentage throws? Your 4-minute offense. How good will that be? So we'll keep track this year of the sack rate.
Okay.
And see how Nebraska's doing, and among other things that we'll look at this year. But that's the offensive line and the tight end.